Tonight, a plea for more addiction support after an entire family dies of suspected drug overdoses.
Help another family not have to go through what my family's all just been through.
Also, some city councillors and members of the public are putting the issue of homelessness back in the spotlight. Plus, Poundmaker Cree Nation celebrates the return of a special piece of history.
The bag is 130 years old.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Wednesday, September 13th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening, and thanks for watching. An entire family in Saskatoon died from suspected overdoses this year, all of them within 6 months of one another. A baby and her 38-year-old parents. Their surviving family hopes their nightmare creates better supports for parents with addictions and better protections for their children. Sam Sampson has our top story.
So what I have is a copy of the funeral cards.
It's all that's left of Ann Doig's son and his family after suspected overdoses. Madison died first on New Year's Day. In February, the father, John Cowan, and in June, the mother, Berkeley Donkervoort.
She was walking independently, but not very steady.
Doig says coroner reports show Madison died with fentanyl, carfentanil, and benzodiazepines in her stomach. The parent systems contained a similar mix of drugs. Doig says Madison's parents used illicit drugs before, during, and after the pregnancy. She called police and social services several times, concerned for Madison's safety.
It's a dreadful thing to think, but as I say, absent a very powerful intervention and sustained over a long period of time, that little girl's hope of anything resembling a normal life was fraught.
You need a village around this.
This specialist helped create a support network in Toronto for mothers with addictions. He says it takes the housing sector, healthcare, child protection, and the legal system all working to keep families together.
Just because that person has an active addiction, it doesn't mean that they have to lose custody over that child forever. But what it can mean is that there are other people who are brought in place to make sure that that child is raised safely, is loved, is hugged.
Doig and other families want a safe drug supply for parents with substance use disorder. The Saskatchewan government says it's instead focusing on addiction recovery.
February 6th, Minister of Social Services.
Susan Donkervoort is Berkeley's mom and Madison's other grandma. She wishes the baby was removed from the home. From outside of Saskatchewan, she tried calling authorities and politicians for help.
All I can do is maybe try and help another family not have to go through what my family's all just been through.
This is the closest she got to meeting Madison on what would have been the baby's second birthday. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Homelessness is back on the agenda at Regina City Council, and once again, several councillors and members of the public are putting the issue on the front burner. Alexander Kwan brings us that story.
A month ago, the front of Regina City Hall looked like this, the home of a tent encampment, which at its peak housed more than 70 people who had nowhere else to go. In July, police swept in, evicting the residents and tearing down their homes amid safety concerns. And while the tents may be gone, replaced with these fences, the issue of homelessness has not gone away. And now the fallout of the decision to evict that encampment is set to play out at Regina City Council. 4 councillors, Cheryl Stadnichuk, Andrew Stevens, Dan LeBlanc, and Shannon Zachidniak, are calling for the city to declare a houselessness emergency. They want the city to call on the provincial and federal governments to contribute emergency money to deal with the ongoing crisis in Regina. They're also asking for city administration to create a plan to provide temporary shelter for people who need it, and to make a long-term commitment to addressing homelessness in the 2024 budget. The councillors also want encampments to only be dismantled for safety reasons that aren't properly dealt with by camp organizers. Stanichuk admits there are a lot of ideas, but she says they're important.
I'm hoping that the fellow councillors will see the necessity of having some kind of a plan rather than us being forced to react to different crises that happen in the city, if it's an encampment somewhere or fires. We are reacting to it right now, and I think we need to act proactively instead.
The city says that between 2015 and 2021, the number of unhoused people in Regina climbed from 232 to 491. Many are attributing that to the COVID-19 pandemic and cost of living increases. Mayor Sandra Masters has been a vocal opponent of encampments as a solution for homelessness, and many in council have been swayed by her advocacy. So it appears the 4 councillors pushing the issue may face an uphill battle. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
The province is not accepting a $2 million donation for an MRI scanner in Estevan. Local businesswoman Elaine Wacom offered to buy the machine and train 2 technicians to operate it at St. Joseph's Hospital, but the province declined. Wacom says she offered the MRI as a way to give back to the community where she's been successful and as part of her late husband's legacy. She says she's dumbstruck to hear the province turn down the money.
To drive 3 hours if you live in the southeast corner that's a long way, especially in winter conditions. Who wants to do that? That's scary driving, and there's no reason that we can't have it here that I can think of.
If the decision is made to have an MRI in the community of Estevan, it's really looking at the priority of the province is having services as close to home as possible, as well as increasing access. And I think we can do both of those.
Kopik says she understands the government's view, but would support an MRI in the hospital if the province did accept the donation. She's unsure of the operating costs and says the next step is developing a financing plan for the government. That plan would include the cost to establish and operate an MRI machine in the hospital. But in an email to CBC, the Ministry of Health thanked Wacom for her generosity and said, quote, "The development of a thorough plan is key to determining if and how a new healthcare service can be supported and accessible in the long term." A federal court is hearing arguments over the possible deportation of the former truck driver who caused the deadly Humboldt Broncos bus crash. 16 people were killed and 13 others were hurt when the Broncos bus collided with a semi-truck 5 years ago. It's unlikely the court will issue a decision today in the case of Jaskirat Singh Sidhu. If he's successful, the case would be sent back to the Canada Border Services Agency for another review. Sidhu was handed an 8-year sentence back in 2019. The RCMP have arrested Wade Frenchman, a man who was already in jail, in connection to a double homicide in 2021. Frenchman was arrested in the Saskatoon Correctional Centre this month. He's accused of 2 counts of first-degree murder for killing Alyssa LeCain and Daphne Bear in North Battleford on Christmas Eve of 2021. The women were found dead after a house fire, their deaths later deemed homicides. Frenchman was charged in June with first-degree murder for a separate homicide. He will appear in court for the new charges next week. A sexual assault case in Saskatoon is back at square one. Cecil Wolfe originally pleaded guilty last year to 12 counts of sexual assault, but then changed his mind. A judge in Saskatoon has agreed to erase Wolfe's guilty pleas. This means the entire process starts over later this month. The judge ruled Wolfe's lawyer gave him bad advice and cast into doubt how much he understood about the charges and the consequences of pleading guilty. It's alleged Wolfe sexually assaulted a dozen women. He pretended to be a medicine man, passing off the assaults as traditional healing practices. Saskatoon police are still searching for a suspect in an 18-month-old murder case. So now they're teaming up with Crime Stoppers and BOLO, another national program. Jonathan Wallet-Gendron is the 10th most wanted fugitive in the country. Photos of him are now posted across social media and on billboards around Saskatoon. A $50,000 reward is being offered for tips leading to his arrest. At a news conference this morning, a police superintendent spoke directly to Wallet-Gendron.
If you have been unaware up to this point in time that the Saskatoon police have been looking for you to speak to you, consider this your notice. I encourage you to take this opportunity now to go to the nearest police service, inform them of who you are, and from there we'll take it.
Paulette Gendron is 5 feet 6 inches tall with black hair and brown eyes. Notable tattoos include a Mayan statue on his right hand and a black rose on his left wrist. He's wanted in connection with a May 2022 homicide on Saskatoon's Melrose Avenue. Anyone with information is asked to call police or Crime Stoppers. Well, almost 2 months after suffering a significant knee injury, Riders quarterback Trevor Harris took questions from the media today. On July 15th, Harris fractured his right knee during the fourth quarter against Calgary. He underwent surgery and has been busy rehabbing ever since. Harris is not ruling out a return this season, but says his focus is just day to day. He says he recently started jogging and hopes to be back on the field throwing in 2 weeks. His injury, known as a tibial plateau fracture, is uncommon, but it's not to Harris and his family.
Actually, my brother-in-law, when he was 37 years old, almost like to 10 days away, he broke his tibial plateau when he was coaching. A player ran from the sideline, ran to his knee, and he broke his tibial plateau. And then, true story, believe it or not, about 4 weeks after mine, my parents take the dog in because it wouldn't eat and he was limping. They were thinking gout, whatever. They do an x-ray, and my dog broke his tibial plateau. Unbelievable, right? I mean, I'd never even heard of tibial plateau until 2017, and the only other person I'd heard of that did that was J.J. Watt. And so the fact that we had 3 in our family is pretty crazy.
Riders head coach Craig Dickinson says Harris has been a great leader in the locker room during his recovery. Dickinson says he knows Harris will want to come back as soon as possible, but the team won't rush it. Well, some lucky shots for these disc golfers in Regina today. A light breeze made for a comfortable day out on the course in Douglas Park. Looks like we're going to ride a bit of a temperature roller coaster the next couple of days. Ethan will explain in his weather forecast after the break. Stay with us. Ordered to pack a bag and leave without delay, residents of a northwest Edmonton condominium building now face an uncertain future. The issue? Structural safety and what experts say is a need for greater building regulation. Wallace Snowden has more.
What happens when you're asked to pack your bags and leave your condo due to structural concerns? That's the question facing residents here at this northwest Edmonton condo. The building has been evacuated. Engineers have determined it could collapse at any moment. Inspection reports show its actual construction does not match blueprints on record and that parts of the structure have already started to fail. It's a case of history repeating. In just over the past decade, hundreds of Albertans have been ordered to leave their condos due to issues with unsafe construction. We know of at least 4 high-profile evacuations, each of which triggered long, complicated legal battles. Penhor Wood in Fort McMurray is often considered the most egregious case. Residents there were ordered out at midnight on a cold night in March and were never allowed back. Although settlements were eventually reached after 11 years of litigation, many owners faced financial ruin. And to this day, some continue to pay their mortgages on their now demolished homes.
We finally settled the lawsuit with all of the defendants and just recently sold the land, and all those funds got distributed to the owners. It came nowhere close to covering the value of their units.
There's little recourse for condo owners who discover their homes have been poorly constructed. Because condos are private property, the legal onus falls to owners to pursue civil damages and pay for the repairs necessary to bring properties up to code. Complicating matters, construction companies often dissolve after developments are complete, making it difficult to recover damages. Experts say more enforcement and oversight are needed to ensure buildings are safe.
We've seen over the last couple decades that building standards haven't been enforced. And we are concerned. We're concerned that nobody's taking these concerns seriously.
As for the condo owners here, they'll have to decide whether their flawed homes are worth saving and whether they're prepared to pursue a costly legal battle that may never make them whole. Wallace Snowden, CBC News, Edmonton.
This weather update is brought to you by Titan Automotive, proud member of the Capital Automotive Group.
And our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, joins me now. You know what we haven't talked about in a while? I feel like we've just missed them. Those air quality advisories.
I had a feeling you might say that. And yes, they are back in portions of central and northern Saskatchewan. We'll show you exactly where those are here, stretching all the way down kind of the western side. They were in effect for the Meadow Lake area a little bit earlier, but those have now come to an end. But Prince Albert, Buffalo Narrows, places like that, we're looking at an air quality health index this afternoon at a level 10 out of 10. So again, back where we saw that kind of last week and the week before, unfortunately. Southern Saskatchewan, we're actually dealing with a little bit of rain this afternoon, and a few of these showers also produced some rumbles of thunder and some lightning strikes here and there. And we're seeing a few kind of actually heavier pockets of rain move into extreme southwestern Saskatchewan, and these showers generally kind of moving off pretty quickly to the east, but it is cooling the air where they're falling. And you can see temperatures just really all over the place here. Regina at 16, still 24 in Cornac. Val-Marie was our hot spot just a while ago, around 26. But again, you can see kind of these green pockets here where that rain is falling and cooling things off. Likely showers and thunderstorms, particularly in southern Saskatchewan, possible through the evening. But as that trough of low pressure begins to move out, you see how quickly things clear overnight in south and central. Same cannot be said, though, for northern Saskatchewan. This area of low pressure bringing showers through tonight and tomorrow as well. Could see a few embedded thunderstorms there, too. But high pressure will keep south and central mostly clear over these next couple of days. Still some kind of parting cloud cover here in the north as we head through the day on Friday before that finally starts to clear out as we head through the weekend. Now, just how much are we talking about in terms of rainfall? Pretty sporadic. I mean, there may be some amounts here in the Key and Cree Lakes areas, getting close to 20 millimeters, but kind of around that, seeing some spots of 5 to 10 millimeters, maybe 15. Going to be really dependent on where we kind of see those heavier pockets of rain. But especially south of this area of low pressure, things getting pretty breezy tomorrow in south and central, gusts close to 50 at times before those die down a bit as we head into Friday. Possibly some gusty conditions on the eastern side of the province on Friday. And of course, those winds, with that mostly coming from the west and northwest. This smoke actually going to be coming mostly from fires in BC, it looks like, according to the model. And as you can see, heading into late day Thursday and into Friday, that smoke really dropping southward. So places like Saskatoon and Regina, where we haven't quite seen those air quality advisories reissued for us over this last day here, that is definitely a possibility heading into these next couple of days, unfortunately. And we're seeing some cooler temperatures as well. And when I say cooler, I mean that's comparable to what we'll see on the weekend, not necessarily close to our, when we talk about normal conditions for this time of year, which we are pretty close to that over these next 2 days, but upper 20s for Saturday, mid 20s Sunday, Monday, and then back down to more seasonal conditions Tuesday, Wednesday. For Saskatoon, again, kind of similar story here. We are popping up a little bit as we head into that first bit of the weekend with those overnight lows at times. Could be quite warm for this time of year before dying down, but lots of sunshine here, Sam, heading into the rest of the week.
Perfect opportunity for fall photos before, one big wind gust blows them all away.
Yes, that's right. And all the smoke comes in, too.
Also that, too. Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
Take a look at these giant Indian roosters bred by a Brazilian crop scientist. They can reach heights equal to a 2-year-old child. Some families raise them for food, but the scientists decided to think bigger and improve the rooster's genetics to create a meat production business. So adult birds can sell for as much as $4,000, and there are currently 300 of these giant birds on his property. We'll be back after the break.
When it comes to your news, you want up-to-the-minute access. Anytime, anywhere. Get the facts straight from the source. Download the free CBC News app or visit cbcnews.ca for news you can trust.
The number of dead has risen dramatically in Libya after deadly flooding over the weekend. It happened after 2 dams broke during a huge storm, killing at least 5,100 people, and there are fears that number could double. Search and rescue teams are still finding victims in streets, buildings, and along the country's northeastern coast. At least 10,000 are still feared missing, with tens of thousands homeless. Meantime, calls for help from the international community are being answered. Several countries have sent help. The UK announced $1 million emergency relief package, and the US is coordinating with the UN and Libyan authorities to send funds. Canada is monitoring the situation in Libya through the US and UK counterparts. And Ethan's back with one last look at your weather.
And we're looking for mostly sunny conditions in Regina, definitely clearing out overnight tonight. But those winds picking up from the northwest as we head through the morning and into the afternoon, likely over 50 by the noon hour at that point. Smoke likely going to start building in. If we see it, probably later Thursday into Friday. Saskatoon, almost identical forecast here for you. Starting sunny and then a little bit of cloud cover as we head into the afternoon. 17 degrees is what we're looking at noon hour. Great time to see the aurora last night. We want to thank Blaine for sending in this awesome shot of the aurora and his teepee in the foreground there and the Flying Dust First Nation. And tonight, the KP index, a level 4 out of 9, about the same as last night, peaking between 9 and midnight. But Sam, lots of cloud cover tonight, so not as likely, unfortunately.
All right. Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
And before we leave you tonight, earlier this month marked a special return for Chief Poundmaker's pipe bag. The owner of the bag inherited it and brought it back to Saskatchewan from his home on Vancouver Island. The bag is now housed at the Poundmaker Museum and Gallery, and for the family and the community, the gesture is significant.
This pipe bag was passed down generation to generation and kept just in a safe place in the home. It was donated by, or given back, I guess, by John Waters Dixon. It was very gratifying for him because he woke up one morning and he was thinking, it just came to him, you know what, I need to give this back. It was very emotional, actually, because not only for us, but for the giver, because the giver was, the bag is 130 years old. So giving it back, and you're thinking back about the history. I can envision my great-grandfather sitting in a cold, dank cell, and a chaplain that is very kind and compassionate to him. He must have been very compassionate and kind to him that my great-grandfather would give him a sacred item like a pipe bag. It was cherished, and every time it was passed down, it was told where it came from and how it came into their possession, and it was through a chaplain in the Stony Mountain prison, where Peter Quanapiwin, Poundmaker, Chief Poundmaker, was put in. I touched the bag and just trying to imagine my great-grandfather, when he was holding it. It was precious to him, and the pipe bag is precious and sacred. So, just touching it, trying to feel his presence, his thoughtfulness, his love for his community, because that's really ultimately we were blessed with a very caring chief that he pretty much gave himself up for the community, for all the families on the reserve.
What a great story. That is it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can head to cbc.ca/sask or download the CBC News app. Ethan and I are back at 11. Thanks for watching. Good night.